Hey, what's up everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast, where on this episode, we're going to take a look at some pretty stunning ghost footage that was recently released by Bob Gymlan. Not the Bob Gymlan that is responsible for the Bigfoot footage, but the YouTuber that goes by the moniker Bob Gymlan, who often researches cryptozoology and different Bigfoot stories. Really interesting guy. And he recently released some footage that he captured on his brand new iPhone. And it's pretty shocking. And I have a tendency to believe it's real, and I'll tell you why later, but it actually relates to a personal story that I have, which I will share with you before we get into his footage, because my own personal experience is actually why I think there's a real possibility that Mr. Gimlin's footage might be real. But before we get into that, as promised in the last episode, I am incredibly excited to announce to all of you, AGH Presents UFO Skywatch 2025 on February 7th through the 9th at the Bay Street Beach here in Santa Monica. Why is this place special? Because of the sheer amount of sightings that have taken place here. From the 1966 Catalina Channel cigar UFO sighting, to the Thor Lazon sighting, to the Tic Tac sighting, the 1992 USO incident, the Air Force One UFO sighting, which just took place here this year, which is, if you look at the screen right now, pretty stunning footage.
A presidential TFR over Los Angeles, over LAX. Give us a yes, give us a no. If you...
Oh, what is that?
And of course, the Battle of Los Angeles, and so many others, all took place in the skies directly above and off the coast of the Bay Street Beach here in Santa Monica, which is why it has been called by many the #1 UFO hotspot in the world. And I'm incredibly excited that we're holding it on February 7th through the 9th, because that is the perfect time of year to do this because of the clarity. At that time of year, you can see from Los Angeles to Long Beach. You can actually see Catalina Island from the coast of Santa Monica. You can see Point Doom and Malibu. And of course, the skies of LA are directly above us. It is just the perfect time to skywatch these skies off the coast of Santa Monica. And we're not only going to do some sky watching, we're also going to have two separate CE5 experiments. We've talked about it before. You guys have seen the footage. Is Stephen Greer's method of summoning UFOs legitimate or not? Well, we're going to find out together. And we're also going to be reviewing case details and actual evidence from additional cases that you may or may not have heard of that occurred here, in which I will also show you some additional footage that I have captured. As I told you guys before, something very strange is going on here with the military. They are often out over the water at night doing really bizarre stuff. And there's just a lot going on here. It's very strange, which I'm excited for you guys to check it all out. Everybody coming, you will also get the chance to meet my beautiful wife, Laura, as well as my puppy, Chapo. So it's going to be a very fun weekend. I'm incredibly excited about it. Tickets are on sale right now. There are only 30 tickets available. To get your tickets right now, while they last, click the link in the description box below. And last but not least, before we get into my story here and Mr. Gimlin's footage, I also wanted to let you guys know that I recently released the song Injustice, which is about my father.
And I was only 15 when they said my life was over, but you just smiled and told me they don't know her. And when fate's hand folded over shadowlands, you said, boy, it's time to be a man. It's time to be a man. So when tragedy strikes again and pain is all you see, you can take 5 minutes to cry, then get back up on your feet. And then the harbingers came to town. I ripped a hole in the heavens and screamed injustice, so the gods could hear the sound. So the gods could hear the sound. You was my only hero, who never let me down.
It's basically, I guess you can call it the theme song to the A House in the Harbinger Kingdom trilogy, as well as a song does appear in there a couple times, different parts of it. If you guys haven't had the chance to check that out, please do. Please give it a listen. It's a song that means a lot to me. It is about my relationship with my father and essentially what he meant to me in my life. And basically, it's about some things that actually appear in the story of A House in the Harbinger Kingdom as well. Also, I just want to remind everybody, November 18th, right here on this YouTube channel, you will see a sneak peek to the trilogy, A House in the Harbinger Kingdom. I am incredibly excited about that. I'm also uploading more music and some additional footage that will only appear on my Patreon page. So if you would like to support me as a filmmaker, as a musician, if you would like to support this podcast, please visit the Patreon page and consider becoming a patron. I definitely have at least one more trip that I have to make home to do some follow-up interviews to finish the whole project up. You get to the end of a filmmaking project, there is always a need for additional finances. So the best way to support that effort is through the Patreon page, and that would mean the world to me. Having said that, let's get into Mr. Gimlin's footage. Now, before I show you this footage, I need to tell you a story, and it will make sense when we get into the footage. But this story involves an experience I had when I was 14 years old. Now, this is when I was living in the infamous haunted house in Persia, which this story actually involves my father too, and his unique way of dealing with me, which is pretty funny. But back then, my dad used to throw these parties. They were basically like barbecues and pretty much, beer bashes for his biker friends and his best friend at the time. Oh, you hear that? Can you guys hear that right now? That is a Chinook helicopter. Right now, that is flying out over the water. I'm not fucking around, guys. Weird shit happens here all the time. Anyways, back to the story. My dad was a biker, and he was a big Harley guy, and his Harley friends, specifically my Uncle Mike, who, God rest his soul, he's no longer with us either, used to come over, and just everybody from the community would come over, and my dad would spend all day long, barbecuing fajitas. He loved making these fajitas, and he had his own unique recipe and all this stuff. Anyways, that's beside the point. But hundreds of people, 200, 300 people throughout the course of the day would end up coming over, and it was always an amazing time. At that time, I was dating this girl named Becky. And like any young boy, when you have girlfriends, at that age, you're not exactly looking for love, you know what I mean? Well, at that time, I also took, the opportunity to sneak a beer or two when I could. Just because, I'm at that age, right? And to be honest, drinking at the age of 14 or 15 in rural Iowa is a very common thing. That's pretty much what anybody did in their spare time they call them dirt road parties, which people would just find dirt roads and you'd steal all the beer you could and just get drunk. But anyways, I thought I was being sneaky, and I had snuck a couple beers, and I was in my dad had this garage that he would always hang out in, and everybody's there, and I was there with my girlfriend Becky, and all of a sudden my dad called me over, and he was like, "Hey boy," and I'm like, "Yeah," and he had this way of kind of looking at me when he was serious, and I knew that he's not fucking around. You better pay attention to what he's saying. And he leaned forward to me, and he was like, "Look at me." And I looked at him, he was like, "How many beers have you had?" And I could tell he knew somehow. And like I said, my dad was not the kind of guy that you lied to. You didn't, because it would get bad quick. And I just said, "Well, 2. And he's like, "You need to slow down." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "It's noticeable." I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "Getting a little too handsy." And what he meant was, I guess I was being too touchy-feely in public with my girlfriend there. So I was like, oh shit. I went over and told her, like, we need to, go somewhere else and kind of get away from people right now, because if my mom finds out that I'm drinking, it's going to get bad. So we decided that we were going to go into the house, the haunted house. Now, in my house, the area that was the most haunted and was the most freaky was in the basement, right at the bottom of the stairs. And when I say this, there were many people that knew nothing, including like Justin, his first time over there, including Laura, actually, that you wouldn't have to tell them anything. They would just come over and they would hit the bottom of those stairs and they'd be like, oh my God. And I'm like, what? All of them would say the same thing. I just felt some kind of evil presence, like something was right next to me. And I had felt this 1,000 times. Our pantry was down there. Whenever my mom would cook dinner, the most terrifying thing was when she would say, Chad, we need to go down and get, baked beans, or go grab ketchup or some shit down in the pantry, because nobody ever wanted to go down the stairs alone. So I used to I would fire down those stairs lightning speed, sprint to the pantry, grab whatever it was, and fire back up those stairs as fast as I could. Well, during that time, when I knew that I was buzzing a little bit, my dad had pointed it out and said, hey, it's kind of noticeable. You need to make yourself kind of, not so obvious to your mother. I had convinced my then girlfriend to go to the one place that I knew nobody was going to be, which was in the basement. And so she didn't know at that time that there was anything, weird in the basement or anything like that. So we got down in the basement, and once I get down there, I didn't really have that feeling at that time, and we're just kind of hanging out. And remember, I'm kind of drunk, and one thing leads to another, and me and my girlfriend wind up back by the water heater. Had these like wooden pull doors, and you can open it up, go in there, and shut the doors. And behind the water heater, there was about like maybe an 8 to 10 foot space of just open area. And I'm like, hey, like no one's down here but me and my girlfriend. Let's go back behind this space. So I talk her into this, and she agrees. And so we go back there, and we're doing what young kids do. And all of a sudden, she says to me, shh, I hear something. And I'm like, huh. And I'm listening, and I'm like, I don't hear anything. And I didn't hear anybody. I didn't hear anything at all. And at this point, she doesn't have many clothes on, nor do I, right? I'm not, and there's a reason I'm telling you all this, guys. It's not to, kind of like brag of the idiocy of a young man, but it's where we're at, right? And I'm like, I don't hear anything. We're fine. And so like 30 seconds later, she's like, Chad, I hear something. Somebody's there. And I'm like, man, I don't think I hear something. And I'm just listening. And all of a sudden I do. I hear footsteps slowly coming down those stairs. And I said to her, I'm like, shit. She's like, who is it? I'm like, I have no idea. And my thought was, oh my God, that's my mother. And if she catches me down here in the water furnace room doing some young man shit, like this is going to be bad. So I'm like, God, what do I do? What do I do? Because if I tell her, just get dressed right now as fast as you can, they're going to hear us. So I look at her, I look at my girlfriend, and I go, Becky, do not make a sound. So we're both just sitting there literally trying to not have our breath make a sound. We're just like going, just barely breathing. And I hear these footsteps now on the carpets. The whole basement was carpeted. And they're sliding up, and I hear the door twist, and I'm going, oh my God, oh my God. Door opens, and the water heater area is probably about 4 feet away. Those doors are like 4 feet away from the door into the room. You hear the door open. all of a sudden, I hear my dad's voice. And he goes, "Hey, boy." And I'm like, "Yeah." And like, my girlfriend's looking at me like, "What the fuck?" You know? And he's like, "I think it's probably time for Becky to go home." And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "Your mom's looking for you right now. Probably wouldn't be good if she caught you two down here." And I'm like, "Okay." You know, I just hear him turn and leave. And I'm like, "Get dressed now." Well, in our basement at that time, there was a side door where I could get her out. And she could just literally beeline. She lived about, I guess, a mile as far as the crow flies, right? She could probably walk there. So I'm like, just take this door and go home. You weren't down here with me. I'm going to chill. Don't worry about it. So my mind is totally on this, guys. I am thinking nothing paranormal, nothing ghostly. I am thinking I need to get my girlfriend out of here. And if my mom comes down, then I was just playing pool. My dad had a pool table down there in a second game room. And I was like, I was just playing pool by myself. That's all. I knew my dad would cover for me if he had to. He didn't want me to get in trouble. And my dad was, like I said, he was cool, man. He knew that I was a young boy doing young boy shit. And, you know, I wasn't breaking any laws, you know. I was just being a dumb kid, you know. And he didn't want me to, you know, obviously get in any trouble for it. But he knew my mom ruled with an iron fist, and that type of shit she just wouldn't take too kindly of. So I got Becky out there and sent her home. And I turn around and I'm playing pool. I pulled out the pool balls and I'm just like, I'm just going to play pool down here until my mom comes down. And when she asks me where I've been, I'm just going to say, hey, I was just shooting pool. And as I'm like shooting pool, I get that feeling like somebody is with me right now. And like I said, I was the furthest thing from thinking about this stuff. I was 100% like in safety mode, like just get my girl out of here. Everything's going to be cool. And every hair on the back of my neck is standing up. I'm just sitting there holding this pool cue, looking at the pool table, just standing there like, my God, what is this? And it feels smothering. I mean, it feels like somebody is there. All of a sudden I hear these footsteps come, you know, coming down the stairs fast as hell, but they're too heavy to be my mother's footsteps. I'm like, who is that? Well, it was my dad's like best buddy, Uncle Mike. He just came, you know, rolling down the stairs and he's like, hey boy, and he comes around and he has those Kodak 35 millimeter cameras. I told you we used to have those all over our house. Just because when weird things would happen, we'd try to take pictures of them. And he just snapped a photo of me. And he was just coming down because he wanted to play pool. And I was like, oh, hey, Mike, what's going on? You know, and he's like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, yeah, I was just practicing pool. You know, everybody knew I hated pool, man. I was never very good at it. My dad and my brother were awesome at it, but I was shit at it. The last thing I would be doing during a party would be downstairs practicing pool. But he didn't really think much of it. And to me, it was like, yes, I'm kind of saved because I was found by another trusted adult. So should my mom ask where I was at, he'd be like, oh, yeah, he's downstairs playing pool. So I didn't think much of it. About a week later, the party's over, all that stuff goes by. You know, I got out of there unscathed. It was all good. But about a week later, you know, these photos, they all get developed. And I was just going through the photos, just looking, you know, again, at party photos. I completely forgot that he took a photo of me. Well, when I got to the photo of me, it was crazy. I was holding a pool cue, and I'm just standing at the back of this table, and directly behind me was this large black figure with this gray face, but it looked like motion blurred. Like you can clearly see me perfectly in focus, table in focus, room in focus, broad daylight, and there's this massive, I mean, it looks like probably like 8 feet behind me, gray head, just looked motion blurred. And I remember seeing that just going, holy shit, whatever is in this house is right there. That feeling I had the whole time was completely backed up with this photo. Now, when I was making American Ghost Hunter, I tore my place up looking for this photo and could not find it. So it's just one of those stories. It's an anecdotal story. You'll just have to take, my word for it. But I'm telling you this because this footage you're about to watch right now with Bob Gymlan completely reminded me of this experience. And just hearing him talk about it just gave me goosebumps. Now let me start by saying Bob Gymlan could be lying. He could be making this up. He could have faked this. It would be possible to fake. But if you do look at his work, he is a really unique guy. Rogan's had him on actually to talk about his research as well. That's not his real name. Like I said, it's just a moniker that he goes by because of the famous Bob Gymlan. He's just a YouTuber. He's just a YouTuber that explores cryptid stories and things like that. But if you watch his work and his videos, he's really detailed. He has no other videos that he fakes anything. He doesn't really have a lot of videos that involve anything to do with ghosts at all. They're almost all cryptid stuff. And even his cryptid videos, most of them are like Bigfoot videos where he is highly critical on footage and breaks things down to an incredible degree. And when you hear him talk, he has a really unique pattern to the way that he speaks, almost poetic, very unique. Having said that, well, I mean, obviously we have to take him for his word, but I want you to see this footage because I definitely have a tendency to believe that it's authentic. And it's just a belief, guys. I cannot prove that. I don't know that for a fact at all. But when I see something in the sea of bullshit that's out there on the web, that strikes a chord with me as something that could genuinely be authentic, I want to share it with you, especially because this last set of photos you're going to see, this thing that he photographed looked remarkably similar to the thing that was photographed behind me in my parents' home. Okay, so check this out. In this footage here, Gimlin basically talks about how he worked at this place, and it's like a spa or something like that. And he had to go walking through there at night to basically check to make sure that everything is basically okay in the place. You just have to do like a walkthrough as a like night security. And I'll let him tell part of the story right now, and then I'll interject after he shows this first bit of evidence. Check this out, guys.
And it was definitely a little frightening. Maybe not frightening, but unnerving. And I mean just because, being alone in a big building secluded. I don't mean it was unnerving because of ghosts or anything. But I very much had the feeling that there would be someone around every corner. That's just how it felt. Busy, I think is the best way to put it. I never had the vibe that I was alone. Which was a bad thing, obviously, because I was supposed to be alone. And I can say with near 100% certainty that I was the only breathing human in the facility. It just felt busy. Like there might be someone around any corner. Which is interesting because the spa, even on busy days, it was not only designed but managed to never feel busy. There was never a crowd in any one place, and I was never there when it was open anyway. And just so you're aware, I did not notice the figures the night that I took them. Yes, this night, I had no idea that I'd captured some of the most compelling paranormal evidence that I've ever seen, personally or from anyone else. And to be completely honest with you, and this is strange, a little bit, I guess, but I don't even remember when I noticed the figures in the frames. But I know it wasn't the night I took them. It must have been in the following days. Which brings us to our first apparition. So first I look down this long, creepy hallway. Then I turn to go into one of the service rooms, have a look about for whatever reason. And then I get fixated on this window at the end of the hall. I take 3 photos of the window. And then one at the floor. The baseboard, maybe. And I must have walked away. I'm looking at the window from a distance, but I'm heading back to it. And then here is the first of several in this sequence that seem to depict something else, to the right of the flash. And if you're not convinced, you can see it better on the live capture, and I'll replay it. Again, I didn't even notice the figure in this sequence until I started working on this video. This was not the subject of this video. I haven't even gotten to the good part yet. And it's easy to think at first that this silhouette is just me, but it's not, because I'm holding the phone in front of my face. And you can even make out that there's no arm between where the figure is and the flash. Just to be clear, I'm holding the phone to my face on the left. To prove that the silhouette on the right isn't me, look at this photo from earlier, from a few photos ago. See? No figure. I'm the only silhouette in the picture, with the flash in front of my face. And then about 10 pictures later, in the same spot, I'm not the only figure in frame. It's incredible. Am I missing some? Is there some way that this is like my reflection or something that I'm completely missing? Because it kind of seems like it can't be.
Okay, that footage is incredibly creepy. Because either it's authentic or he is absolutely faking it and he just has a guy standing next to him, because there is a figure there. That is creepy. That is incredibly creepy. And again, his pattern, the way he talks and the way he presents it, I don't get the vibe. And I think context to these things, because we can fake anything, right? We can fake anything with CGI. You can fake anything with post effects. So you really got to look at context and just the telltale signs, the giveaway signs, the presentation signs, to really kind of determine how authentic something is. And this, it really creeps me out. And it looks remarkably similar to what I experienced, but not as much as the photos coming up. Check this out now. This is after this piece of video happened with him. He explains here that power drainage kind of occurred, which stopped the pre-video process on the iPhone of snapping photos, which he'll discuss here, and then he'll show you a series of pictures of what occurred next. Check this out.
Then I go away, look at some doors. And again, sorry if this is boring, but I'm literally showing you every photo I took that night in order. So, looking at doors. But then wouldn't you know it, I end up right back in front of that window. I was alone in there. But not alone. Strangely enough, this photo is the last photo that used the live capture. After this photo, the live capture feature ended, which according to my research is a result of low battery. When low battery mode turns on, it only takes the normal still capture. But I took 6 more pictures of that window. Well, I was all prepared to say that after the live feature ended, that it didn't pick up anything else, but as I'm looking at it, it sure looks like someone disappearing down the hall. I have the goose pimples. I will label, blow up, and scrub. So here are the 6 photos I took after the live capture feature ended, and they're blown up to 300%. Maybe I've been looking at this for too long, but I see a figure, like, going maybe down the hall. See that? But the fact that the live feature terminated as a result of low battery really jives with what paranormal speculators claim about alleged spirits or entities requiring a power source to manifest. I don't feel qualified to speculate on that, but who on earth is? The reason I'm kind of doubtful of that claim is because what would make anyone think that these things have to follow the same rules that we do, or that our reality does? But I guess everything requires power, so... Some people might say this is a shadow person, which I actually only now, in this exact moment, found that notion kind of insulting. I've always been under the impression that shadow people are evil, and that just isn't the vibe of this place. I think we've all been to locations at least if you have any imagination or intuition at all. But for me, anyway, I've been to places that feel wicked. Places that literally make me feel sick, and that make my heart ache. And I put a lot of stock into that feeling, because every time I've experienced that, it's never been a place that looked like it. Big evil will tell you exactly what it is. Little evil is more nondescript. Usually, if that makes any sense. It's not like this place looks evil, so I think it's evil. It's like a gut feeling, and usually pretty nondescript places.
So as you can see, something is clearly there that walks out and around the corner. Is this just another person? Yeah, well, like I said, the evidence is so good, it's either real or it's an incredibly bold fake and an overt attempt to, fool everybody. Just a lie. Again, there's an air to this that strikes me as real. But what really terrified me is this next, I shouldn't say terrified, but freaked me out, is this next series of photos, and specifically the last photo that you're going to see here. I'll tell you why in a second. Check these out.
Now we get to the actual ghost photos that this video was actually supposed to be about. But I can't believe this. So this is just a washed out photo. I'd just as well assumed that I had my thumb over the flash or something. And then I make my way into the lounge. But I took 16 more photos wherein the live capture is unfortunately disabled. And of those 16 photos, an obvious and apparent apparition appears in no less than 6 of them. 6 out of 16. That's 37% of the remaining photos. And the apparition you're about to see is no reflection. And right here is the first time it appears. See in the chair? Let's blow it up. I may not have even noticed this had it not been for the photos to come. Empty chair, empty tables, fireplace, and again, same figure, same place, and here it is blown up to 300%. Here's the bar, and the POS station, another of the bar, but here it is again, and blown up to 300%. I know this is too much, I really do. Then the fireplace again, and then the figure again, and blown up to 300. This looks like its neck is twisted, or broken, but that might just be me, the desire to make the scene fit the narrative, so to speak. Though, to be honest, I know of no narrative of this place that suggests a haunting.
Okay, again, if this is real, I can't imagine walking through a room and having a person just sitting there and not knowing, or shooting through a doorway and having a person sitting there and just not knowing. But the last photo he shows here is incredibly creepy. Check this out.
Then the bar, and then of course, as is dictated by the nature of things, my very last photo of the night. That right there, has eye shine. For the longest time I thought this was the only ghost photo from the night, to be honest. It wasn't until some time later that I noticed that the same figure is in several pictures, and then it wasn't until I started making this video that I noticed the figures in the window. Do ghosts have eye shine? I'm not really sure what that light in the window is. It's definitely not something outside. There's only woods beyond the glass, but I suppose it's probably just the camera flash.
The eye shine is really bizarre. Really, really bizarre. But what freaks me out the most about this, as I told you, in the photo that I had, again, I don't have it, so it's just anecdotal. It's just me telling you a story. But from memory, this is incredibly similar, except for the thing that was entity, whatever you want to call it, that was in my initial photograph. The whole body was black, kind of like the first thing you saw in his video, but the head was remarkably similar. It has that blurring effect, and it was gray too. It didn't have the eye shine, but the reason the eye shine is weird to me is because I don't think I've ever seen a human being photo where human beings have the eye shine. I've seen red. I've never seen human eyes, and I don't think they do reflect like that. So I don't know what this is, But clearly this thing, whatever it is, has eyes. I would love to do research on this building because he says throughout here, I don't know if you guys heard it earlier or not, but he says that he doesn't know of any haunting story about the place. He just said that he felt an incredibly strong presence around him the whole time. And I know that feeling. I know the feeling he's referencing. But he admittedly says he doesn't know of any haunting story or why it would be haunted. But that doesn't mean anything. That could just mean he doesn't know. And let's not forget, anywhere is haunted. Anything is haunted. Anything can be haunted. We don't know when or where, people died. We don't know if we're looking into another dimension or not. We don't know anything like that. I know the fort of this place has some pretty weird designs. Check this out. I would love to look into this design and see what the hell this is and why it's here. It certainly wasn't accidental. Is it cult related? Is it dimensionally, mathematically unique or important? I don't know. There's obviously a lot more research I would have to do on this place, and I would have to have several more interviews with him to ultimately, throw my, sword in the ground and say, yes, I believe for a fact this is real. Which I can't say that, but I say, like I said, this struck me as having an air of authenticism to it, and he seems like he's being truthful to me. And I just thought this footage was incredibly creepy, and it rang incredibly true to an experience that I had, in which I would give anything if I still had the photo. So like I said, you're just taking my word for it. But I've experienced this exact thing before, where I was certain in my basement there was definitely nobody in there with me when my Uncle Mike walked in and snapped a photo. So anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I would love to know your thoughts. There are no wrong or right answers, Like I said, I can't prove it's real or prove it's not. But very, very unique, very interesting to me. Let me know what you guys think. And once again, November 18th, get ready to see the extended sneak peek of a house in the Harbinger Kingdom. And my friends, I will be back tomorrow. Don't forget also, tickets are now on sale to AGH Presents, UFO Skywatch 2025. Ticket link is in the description box below. There are only 30 tickets available to that event. Much love, everybody. I will be back again tomorrow with another episode. All the best.